Why are we faced with these same problems again and again? Why do they never end? Because, ladies and gentlemen, ultimately the problem is not an economic problem so much as it is the problem of white domination of African people. That's the issue. This is the reason why I tell people you must study the psychology of domination even before you study the psychology of racism. Let's understand that. I had one young man who's so happy he's at NYU. He said, oh, I'm learning so much, and I'm so happy. I'm in this class in economics. You know, I said, well, now, why are you in that class? And they're doing all these circles and curves and, you know, cost and all these kind of figures, which Negroes think are magic signs for making money. You see, so they think if they learn all this voodoo, that they're going to come out and be like the white folk. But remind that professor that the American economy is not ultimately based on the management skills of American management. It's not based on the organization of American corporations. What ultimately is it based on? Upon the murdering of Indians and the stealing of their lands. So that the economic course essentially is a course in how the booty is going to be divided among American people. It all goes over what? Gold and salt, and who won, and over trade routes and other things. And people went to war and took those things from one and another. And those who gained control over them then built empires and nations and so forth as a basis of that. Not just studying economics 101 and business administration. But you got to learn real history. You got to learn a history that goes beyond just the celebration of African heroes and the celebration of African culture. And he shifts his visions and is not afraid to change his mind and go against his prior opinions when that reality suggests that those opinions were wrong. You have to wake up. You cannot let any leader become a sacred cow to the point where you forget how to perform a realistic analysis on the situation. Because ultimately it is your individual lives and the life of our people that is a question here, not the glory and power of an individual person or leader, but of the people themselves. I think we are in a better position at this point because unlike Du Bois and Washington and the others who were in a sense at the front end of these issues, we have had now 80, 90 years to see what happened. We can measure results. Therefore, we can take an empirical approach, an empirical analysis, an analysis based on experiment, an analysis based on actual experience, and look at the results. That looks at the programs of other leaders and look at the results that they wrought. So we don't have to guess, and we don't have to be quite as theoretical as we used to be. We can say, let's see what the results bear out. And let's see if this form of leadership can be justified any longer based on its results. And this is what we have to measure.
Peace, everyone. Welcome to another BAB Talks or BAB Barter and Build think tank production. We talked about this, Where Are They Now, where we follow some of the economic blueprints that Dr. Amos suggests that we look into and follow, right? And so this episode, I'll be joined by my brother, Dr. Jarrett Ball, and we'll be diving into a brand and a company of our HomeBoys, two HomeBoys. And so as you heard Dr. Amos say, there's a couple interesting things in there that, one, we shouldn't deitize our leaders or our elders or our ancestors in a way where we don't critique and build off of what they lay down for us. And so it's important that we kind of thrust that out first. So another thing I want to do before we get started, and I'll let Jarrett respond to his thoughts about what Dr. Amos just said, And then when you go to the book, page 704, my big red book, chapter 27, financing Black economic development. I'm gonna read something because I think sometimes, you know, if we're honest, I'm not sure everybody went through this book the way they should have, because this book is thick and is aggressive. But at the top, the first paragraph says, beginning with this chapter through chapter 30, we will suggest and describe numbers of ways the African American and Pan-African economic system may be financed by initiatives set forth and controlled by the African American and Pan-African community itself. These suggestions are not exhaustive in breadth or depth. They are not written with the expertise of a professionally trained or experienced economist. Their main purpose is to stimulate and focus discourse in the African community regarding the means of financing its economic development and enhancing its economic well-being and political economic power. More than merely catalyzing discourse, we hope the corrections and refinements, as well as the creative approaches and our suggestions, might move others to serve as platforms for community actions that will lead to tangible, positive results. So, Brother Jared, I know that you've had some critiques of Amos, and I know that people have felt some type of way about it, but based off of things that he said, what he wrote there, what's some of your initial thoughts about those two things?
So, first of all, I appreciate you inviting me and having these discussions and doing this work. The two quick points I would make are, one, I mean, it to his point about we have to be willing to look back at our elders and our leaders and our greats and be able to be critical is important. And I acknowledge my own discomfort with having any criticism of Dr. Wilson and many others. And it's not for a lack of understanding what and at least believing in what I think their ultimate goals and efforts were, which I support. But the other thought I had is similar to as he said in the clip you played. A lot of the economic analysis, including that I think he offers, seems devoid of an understanding of, as he described it, white domination. I might describe it, in addition to white domination, as something akin to colonialism, or a need for us to better understand political economy, as opposed to politics or economics. But it just seems that what he suggests that what we do and what his goals are, as he lays out in his Black Economic Empowerment Plan, is still largely based on a Western capitalist analysis of how wealth is generated, and the potential that we have within the capitalist system to do the same that others have done. And that's where I think there are some flaws. I mean, there are others, and you know, that would be beyond, I think, the scope of this particular conversation. But anyway, those are my initial two thoughts. And I would just like to add very quickly something that you sort of alluded to, that I think one of the problems that we have in general is, credit to my man, Dr. Bolden, on this. We don't, one, we're not reading all of these works in their entirety and carefully enough. And two, we're not doing it as collectives, even with senior scholars or experts or whomever leading the discussion and the study. Reading Amos Wilson, you know, reading this book alone by yourself I wouldn't encourage it. There's so much in here that deserves unpacking and exploration, that just saying I read this because I sat and did it by myself, it would be insufficient. So anyway, so those three thoughts, I guess I'll start with.
Now, I think that's why it's important that you have that segment of not by myself. And when you think about this book, like you said, there's no way, you know, I think I told you about this, but I had a conversation with a brother who said he was a Dr. Amosite, and then I started talking about hegemony, white hegemony. He was like, "What's that?" What does that mean? And I was like, wait, that's who I learned it from. So, but let's get into. So this is coming from page 643 all the way to 647. Now, I think the second time. Well, I don't know. The second time I read this book, and then any other time that I've like facilitated study groups, like this page gets a lot of marks, right? 642, especially at the bottom. And I don't know if there's any. No, I do know. I know there's a couple things that stand out for you. So you can kind of go ahead and tell us what you see in the paragraph that's the economics and cultural and subcultural identity. What was the things that stood out to you? You can even read some of it if you want, but what stood out to you there?
I mean, well, he starts off by saying cultural identity and its subcultural varieties are not merely social statements or forms of personal and group self-definition. They also define and determine economic behavior. So one of the first things I wrote when I was just rereading this for today in one of the margins here is I said this what he writes here has already been co-opted and corrupted by capitalism, and has been described in the pages of Nielsen and even some of the Selig Center inspired reports around buying power. What they call this the conscious consumer. And Nielsen and others already talk about Black people as being conscious consumers, and that if you want to market to them, you need to include things like Black people, some symbolically relevant cultural iconography in your commercials, and that will peak. That in and of itself, according to Nielsen at least, will grab the new and younger Black consumer who are conscious consumers, and by conscious they just mean some sort of vague reference. So there is. So I'll stop here, but for now, but there's this kind of assumption in this section from Wilson that suggests that merely recognizing what is true in what he says, that that cultural identity and its subcultural varieties are not merely social statements or forms of personal and group self-definition. They also define and determine economic behavior. I mean, this is what behavioral economics looks to study, and to something as a field I kind of wish I had gone into or would start now. You know, that's the merging of in a Western sense of the study of what Wilson is talking about here, where Wilson assumes some sort of inherent positiveness. So he proceeds from there to talk about some of these ventures I know we're going to get into, but suggests that because Black people create businesses that do what Nielsen today is now suggesting, creating or appeasing or appealing to the conscious consumer, that this is an automatic positive, and that this is going to somehow generate a material shift that I think is impossible to get to. But anyway, and that was my first thought there.
So I think we had a broadcast talk about creating solutions that don't solve from Fred Hampton's words. And something that's interesting about this book, in I think the policy formation chapter, when he was talking about the behavioral revolution and when they went from political science to behavioral science, and they're pretty much controlling the way in which you look at problems. And so what I see is like all the solutions, especially in this book, but even now today, like we'll get into rap snacks. Now today, they're creating solutions and talking as if the buying power thing is actually true, and as if you could just tap some of the market within Black people in this particular opportunities, Black kids, young people, and then from that you'll have a portion of this large industry. Which again, I keep seeing they say, "Oh, we're gonna take over this industry," but like the Frito-Lays and I forgot the Nestle and all, like these people has like a huge chunk of this industry to where, I mean, I'm not even sure that and they control the means of production. Somebody's not putting their flavors together. Somebody's not frying the chips for them. They're just not at the entail of distributing it to the people. And so, again, in this chapter, I see a lot of things. I see them saying like, oh, this is going to approach and solve a social issue, which is really a political issue, but and their idea is like we need to just sell, poor kids chips and a message on the chips. And and Yo even said something about the kids go to school and they're hungry, and so now you have to actually get in and sell them the chips that they're eating. Man, I don't know. It was a little rough.
And also, again, to the point I keep coming back to, their community would have to have enough resources to spend enough on those chips at a rate and in a volume that allows the business to grow and expand, with the idea that it is going to create wealth that somehow comes back to that same community. It's just not.
Yeah.
He also, by the way, another note I made to myself here is that he prefigures what would come a few years later, under the guise of sort of hip hop activism and entrepreneurialism. This whole idea that if we call it hip hop this and hip hop that, it's going to bring in the Black youth and the brown youth, and it's going to lead to a revolution of some sorts. If we teach kids poetry through rap lyrics, it's going to change the community. If we teach kids chess by talking about Wu-Tang, it's going to somehow make young Black kids smarter and chess players, and then politically. I mean, it's perfect for today's world. I'm obviously not accusing Wilson of this, but it's perfect in today's world for that kind of what I saw emerge and have been critical of, that kind of non-profiteering.
Right.
Of I'm going to create a hip hop study group and get some funding, and it's because it says hip hop is going to and this idea that I'm going to put hip hop on chips or call it HomeBoys snacks and rap snacks and stuff like that. That doesn't change the underlying economic reality that prevents expansions of these businesses. So,
right. I want to give a shout out to the Barter and Build think tank research team. They have provided a bunch of rabbit holes that you want to go down in the show notes. You can click on them, and I went down a few before and after they posted some things. But were there any rabbit holes or any things that you followed with any of these businesses? So again, we're talking about HomeBoys from Robert or Bob Crowder, the HomeBoys soda, right? Let me see if I got a quick picture of that. And if you're from Baltimore, you probably know about the HomeBoy chip. So that's the HomeBoy soda, right? And then you got the Chummies or Chumpies or whatever you call it. I don't got that Baltimore accent, which is now Rap Snacks. Ladies, we're going to go back to this because there's some messages on there that I know that y'all really want to, men too. But I think we need to kind of figure out what's going on with them. But was there any things that you found about the developments of when the company started, how it did, what happened to it, where is it now? Like anything that you went into that you want to talk about?
No, I mean, you provided the gateways to those rabbit holes, but I didn't. Honestly, I just didn't have the time in the last few days to go down them deep enough. But one of the points that, again, the point I've been bringing up since being involved with that research last year, that stat that comports with what's going on here from 1992 to 2016. No, 1992 to 2012, more than 2 million Black businesses were created, and the percentage captured of national sales revenue went down to 0.3%. So it's predictable what would have happened with these businesses, and it's predictable what would happen to similar style businesses created today. They cannot grow, they cannot survive, they cannot create the material change that they promise when they are marketed to Black communities as part of some sort of revolution. There just isn't the revenue in the Black community. There's not the outside venture capital to support the growth, and so on and so on and so on. The other point that I noted here is that if in that recent Killer Mike series on Netflix, one of his episodes dealt with creating a Blood and Crip, right? A Bloods and Crip soda company, right? Or something to that effect. So it reminded me of that here we go again in the 21st century, instead of referring to the work of Amos Wilson and the history and then updating it with a loving but critical eye. We get Killer Mike coming back telling us the same exact mythology in more sophisticated, well-produced digital, delivery, but it's the same argument that we could see here didn't work.
Right. Yeah. One of the things. So as we was looking through what happened, right? So they closed. I think he stayed for 9 years, as you can see the report here.
Mm-hmm.
But they had some tax issues and some other stuff. Now some funding went down on them and the other person. But I think Robert or Bob Crowder, his business was in his house the whole time. And I think the other people, they was thriving a little bit and lost some money, and then they moved their business to the house too. So a lot of it is coming out of the house, and it made me think of that one report. I think it was you and was it Muhammad that wrote about the growing of Black businesses, but not the growing of wealth. Because these people who actually, you and I can just start a business and then we'll be counted in there, but we literally still live in our house. We don't have the capital. And so I think that was one thing in itself. And then also, I want you to
not to cut you off. Forgive the interruption, but look at what we did with Black Power Media. Mm-hmm. We are an LLC. We are a Black-owned business. We are a collectively owned, Black-owned business. How has that benefited anybody? How has our existence over the past year materially changed or improved, for instance, even your life? I mean, you could say we appreciate the content, we enjoy the shows, we learn some things, we have fun, but we haven't been able to expand. We're not. I mean, obviously, we're still growing, but the point is, the simple fact of creating a business does not mean it's going to make any material change in your own life, which it certainly has not for us, and it doesn't mean that, more importantly, that it's going to make any real change for the rest of the community. That's that thread that I keep wanting to pull on. Sorry about cutting you off.
No, cool. And so the Rob Crowder person, we don't have. I mean, his company went under. I think he was working for. Most of these people have been working in industries, and I guess they was like, I want to stand out on my own, which I think literally most of the people in the book that we go over. And again, stay tuned for the Larry Lundy story coming down the road. But like, some of these things are tragic the way they end. But it's almost like this idea of on your own. And again, when we think about the nationalist people and the Black Power, some Black Power rhetoric of building power outside of them, selling to ourselves, being not a part of the political process, and we don't have to deal with all that. But every step of the way, you're going to have to pay your business taxes, which you didn't pay, and they snatch your business from you. The industry in itself is controlled by the government. And so sometimes it's operating on this island. It literally sounds good to people who are apolitical and people who actually really don't understand how things work. They think just, somebody, like for instance, I think on one of the videos you can see, I think Master P was talking about George Foreman grill. And most of them know that that's not George Foreman's grill. He's the front guy. And they was paying him a percentage. And in fact, they changed from paying him a percentage to one lump sum. I didn't look into details, but I'm pretty sure it was like, this Negro is making too much money on his commission. Let's just throw him one check. And then, you know what I mean? And so we're not really looking into deals like that. We just kind of seeing this guy in the front and, the Foreman grill. So the branding thing has been, ironic. And ironically, this guy says he get his branding from Bill Clinton said HomeBoys. He said HomeBoys. I'm a homeboy from Arkansas. Being business, and then he started HomeBoys soda. So I think that was one of the crazy starts of it. Now, when we go to the potato chips people, because they started in like 91 or 90. Rap Snacks started in '94, and I think the same producer was making both of their chips. So we definitely want to get into that. And then, fortunately and unfortunately, we probably will spend most of the majority of the rest of our time on Rap Snacks, because that is a tangible thing that's supposedly doing what both of these people try to do. I saw Wise Intelligence on Instagram. Somebody said, you should do a lemonade. He said, that's on the way, right? So they already got the soda, the drink, soft drinks, and they got the chips. Hell, they got nonprofit. They got entrepreneur program. They got, they're running with this thing.
But see, that's that again. What you're doing here is so important because all of these people, Wise, Intelligent, everybody else, they've all, they all know who Dr. Wilson was. They all know that of his work. I don't know that they have all read it, but they certainly haven't looked into this particular aspect of Wilson's argument and then sought to update it and see where things stand today. They're simply, in some cases, blindly following what he laid down in Blueprint for Black Power without following up on what happened to the very businesses that Wilson talked about in here. So he's talking about, and I'm just sorry. I mean, some of it it did not age well. Now that we can look back on what happened with Cross Colors and Carl Kanai vis-a-vis the fashion industry, we can see that what Dr. Wilson is saying here about those companies and clothing lines is just not viable. Even though it's become a meme and a joke. When Kanye was yelling at Sway, you don't got the answer, Sway. What he was trying to explain in his own crisis methodology and traumatic methodology is that he had hit the ceiling, even as acclaimed billionaire, superstar, mega celebrity. The fashion industry consolidated as it is, owned up as it is, said you can't get in here. Even super famous Kanye with all your money, you can brand something that we will market and share a little bit of money with you on, but that's it. And you're certainly not going to get into the business at the level where you're going to be creating revenue that's going to support the entire Black community, even if you did get one. Even if Carl Kanai and Cross Colors both survived and blew up in major ways and remained independently Black owned, how would that be expandable in such a way that helped all of the Black community in any meaningful way?
So also I want to get into this right quick. So we talked a little bit about how these people saw the social issues. Now it's unique again, because on black violence, what he says there, what contradicts what he's kind of saying they're doing about the social issues. Like, I don't remember him saying, to stop black on black violence, we have to create businesses. I don't remember him saying that.
Right,
but this on this one particular page here, and he talked about our streets are under siege from drug dealers. Says the co-owner of Chumpies, HomeBoys, and Homegirls. So this concept of, I want to show these kids that ain't the way to go. So I'm gonna sell them chips with these rappers and stuff on it, but this ain't the way to go. Which is kind of interesting, because I know that these are probably separate companies, but they still kind of connected. But the same thing they're trying to save the kids from, the rappers are rapping about. So I'm not sure how, representation on a bag with a gangster rapper is going to, empower the kids. Now, again, if I go back and show you that that one picture with the homegirls, they're pretty much saying like, yeah, don't give it up and save yourself for marriage, and no man wants somebody who already had somebody. Like, who's coming up with these messages, and why do you think?
So this is the Black version of just say no.
yeah. Like, now again, I haven't really, some of the rabbit holes I didn't go through, so I didn't see that Ridgley was just coming. He was 3 years clean when he started this business. So he was on drugs, and he was 3 years clean. And then when he partnered with Muhammad, and again, the funders who put up 100,000, I don't know who those people are, because I couldn't find it. I was trying, but I couldn't find it. But I would be curious to see what his his relations to like being a positive vibe in the community after his drug issues and trying to sell no drugs, and then you got the campaign of say no to drugs, like you said, DARE and all these things. And it seemed like they rode that wave. Like they jumped on a wave and rode the wave, and
so, but one of the issues that I noted again, looking at this again, and this is why it's not, it's important even to come back and read things again after many years with a new view. But we got to remember that in Blueprint for Black Power on page 644, where Dr. Wilson is talking about HomeBoys Inc. chips and referencing an article titled "HomeBoys Inc. Chips in to help inner city teenagers, Philadelphia's firm social message on packaging, win it. Grocery shelf space, win it groceries. In other words, the positive article that he's referencing is from the Wall Street Journal. Mm-hmm. So this is one of the problems that I have with how we interpret this whole Black capitalist piece. The Wall Street Journal is promoting this specifically because they don't want Black people organizing to assume actual power. They want to promote the idea of Black capitalism, Black entrepreneurialism as a solution to the problems in Black communities, because the Wall Street Journal knows more than anybody, or as well as anybody, that this is not going to work. And this isn't the solution. And this isn't how any community creates wealth or protects itself from the ravages of capitalism, white supremacy, or anything else. So, and this is, I think methodologically, this is one of the flaws that unfortunately Dr. Wilson falls into in terms of his economic analysis. A lot of his source material, including my pet peeve around buying power, comes from these white sources that and it's not just that he's borrowing from white sources, which I think methodologically is not a problem. Actually, it's that he's allowing too much of their interpretation on that material to come into his own work, which I think creates the contradictions we're still struggling with.
So if you were to say, okay, we got obviously social political issues. I mean, I would prefer us talk about the political issues and how they all are political issues. But what do you even suggest to people who believe that, okay, because most of them believe that they literally going to solve the issue, and the issue is we need maybe representation, which you will hear on Rap Snacks on every damn interview. Representation, Pinky, all these people. And then what do you even say to them who think that they're going to solve this social issue that they see with starting a business in some kind of way? Again, because you literally see over and over, like this thing, the dude saying something about we're gonna get 25 cents from them, and then we're gonna give them a message, right? Like, and at the end, you see the bottom. He says they trying to get to this $7 billion in snack foods that Black people spend. Like, how do you disabuse people from connecting their entrepreneurial adventure with solving a social issue that they see?
I mean, obviously, I haven't been successful at it. I don't really know, other than to just say, look, this is not, there's no history or data or research that actually support, that I should say, that I'm aware of, that actually supports those claims. In fact, quite to the contrary. Kids aren't engaging in unsafe sex or early inappropriate sexual activity or gun violence or any other things that because they're lacking a message on a bag of chips. Right, exactly. They got 7 billion. I got chips in a bag. Exactly. But that line, by the way, exposes really what is the real goal here. They see these numbers, and that's sort of, again, my point about buying power. They see these numbers, these big numbers, and they'll see a report from Nielsen or Selig or whoever that's saying, hey, Black people spend $7 billion a year on chips and snack foods or whatever. And then for a lot of the Black capitalists inspired, Black entrepreneurially inspired, they think, well, if I could capture that, I'll do something, they'll claim I'll do something better for the people. But they don't understand the process by which you do actually capture that 7 billion. and then which Black businesses are kept out of in terms of the marketing, the scaling up, the distribution, as you mentioned earlier, the owners of the process of the means of production and the assembly of the product, and creating and getting the lion's share of the value of the product. If you are again, if you are having to have 10 other people participate in the production of your chip and marketing your chip and bagging your chip and distributing your chip, you're not going to make that much money. You're not going to capture that 7 billion anyway. But anyway, so what I just try to say is, like, there's nothing that supports your argument. And then, and then if they start to say, well, so-and-so said, or such and such said, then it's somewhat easier to get through and say, well, no, if you actually read Dr. Wilson, I think he might have had this part wrong. And now looking back, as he suggested in the clip you played earlier of Du Bois, now that we can look back, we can say he couldn't have seen X, Y, and Z, or maybe we can understand why he missed X, Y, and Z and start to fill in the gaps. Lastly, on that, the real issue is, again, the messaging and the propaganda, which makes it harder to penetrate those kinds of arguments, because it's not based in research or data. It's based largely in an emotion and a marketing response. And that's hard to penetrate when you don't have the resources and the power to produce or penetrate an equal level of messaging.
So, I mean, I think as we get into this idea of, again, seeing where are they now, seeing that this is a viable option for us, seeing if it aged well. I haven't seen much about, even with Rap Snacks, but especially not with these two companies, about production. I see distribution. I don't see a lot of conversation around employment. And again, I hear the word ownership, but ownership sounds good until you realize that we need Walmart to put it on the shelves so that we, you know what I mean? And Walmart gonna exploit their workers, right? Well, we need Amazon to sell out chips. But so I really didn't hear this owning the means of production, controlling any of that. More so hearing, we started a distribution deal. And funny, again, I know we're gonna keep going back to Rap Snacks, because again, Rap Snacks is the it seems like this James dude read Amos' book and be like, yeah, I'm gonna pop off. I got it from there. And so a lot of our conversation is gonna go there. But in a couple interviews, the Rap Snacks owner, he sometimes tells the story, but then sometimes he doesn't. But the story is, I had this idea because he was working at a record company, and they was throwing away advertising dollars. And he was like, well, why don't y'all just give me the advertising dollars and I can put the rapper on the bag and we can, promote. I don't know if the rapper is getting paid or own anything. But not only that, he said when he had the chip idea, he called a white chip manufacturer and said, hey, man, I got this idea. And he was like, this 70-year-old white man don't know nothing about rap. And he don't need to know nothing about rap.
Nope.
He know how to make chips, and he know how to tell you how much it's going to cost for you to get him to make your chips, right?
And I mean, look, but again, I mean, Jimmy Iovine and them don't need to know anything about rap or Black people either to own the means of production. That's the point. They don't need to know about it; they own it.
Yeah. So they said, go ahead, and he said, you're gonna need this much money. This is what the white boy told him. You need this much money. You need to go ahead and get your seasoning together and get somebody who's gonna do the bag together, and I'll make the chips for you. So, and I don't know. Again, from what I see with Rap Snacks, I don't know if that relationship has changed. I don't know that now they got land, have a factory, and they're paying their employees this kind of, I don't know that. I haven't seen it. I do see. Now again, I work a lot in Baltimore and DC with young people and organizations trying to keep them right. I do see this Boss Up program looking like one of those white nonprofits in Baltimore. That's what it looks like to me. Look like you exploit these kids' labor. You teaching them entrepreneurial mindset, teaching them how to bag the product, but they ain't getting paid. Y'all can look at it on your own. It's in the show notes. But the Boss Up program for Rap Snacks is kind of like, oh man. And in fact, Wise is the director, or Wise Wise and him is partnered up for the Boss Up program. So I don't know if Wise is over the Boss Up program, but it's a little rough, man. I want to go ahead. You mute. Uh-oh.
No, I was just gonna say, go ahead.
Yo, so where else would I want? I wanted to go to this. Actually, I want to play this Wise clip right quick. Let me make sure oh, here it goes. Yeah, man, look, this nosedive I've been taking into these things, it was kind of like rough for me because I saw the rap snacks before, but recently I started like digging more into rap snacks, and I'm like, just rough to watch, man.
It's for me, it's just the associated claims that are the problem, not so much the effort or you know the claims about, or you know, if you want to start a chip company and put positive messages on it, I mean, I think that's great. To do this with any suggestion, again, that this is an alternative to real movement building is I think part of the problem.
Hey, I don't know if you saw, you know, they got a bank too. They got a bank or alternative banking system and app. And
yeah, I mean, exactly. Yep.
Here it go.
Yep.
Be ahead of those companies, like Uber, before they go public.
Yes.
You know, you got to be a part of these companies and understand them before they go like stock boss up. Maybe a public company one day.
Yeah.
So
we take Uncle Pete Foods. I mean, everybody always hit me up on social media, hitting James up, saying we want to invest into y'all product because we see the vision. So if you really see the tree and not the mustard seed, jump on board now because we're gonna take Uncle Pete products, PJ Foods. We're gonna take this to the next level, to the stock level. We're gonna show you. We're gonna guide you through this to be a part of us building a multi-billion-dollar business. And it start with just planting those seeds and saying, "I'm gonna do this." We jumping into the game to show our people if Kellogg's, and the Bisco, and the other big companies can do it. Why can't we do it?
So, I mean, first of all, I'm gonna always say, like, wait, did it play just now?
Mm-hmm.
First of all, I'm gonna always say, like, my brother Diallo said that all billionaires and millionaires are parasites, and then, you know, but it's almost like I'm telling you, I have never flown a plane in my life, but I'm gonna show you step by step how to fly a plane. This is what he's saying. I'm gonna show you how to make $1 billion. Like, you don't have $1 billion. Like you don't even control the industry that you say you in, but you gonna teach these kids how to do it. It's.
I mean, again, the broadly speaking, it's a flawed analysis, and it's politically unhelpful to continue to promote this Black entrepreneurialism as an alternative to political struggle. But that said, I think I just lost my train of thought. But even that point aside, what is missing in that short discussion in the claim of developing a multi-billion-dollar snack company is that the snack food industry is itself already highly consolidated in ownership. And when they start making comparisons and saying, well, why can't we do what Kellogg's is doing? The first answer is other even white companies in a white supremacist capitalist society can't do what Kellogg and Hershey and Frito-Lay and others have done. That's the point. That there aren't Walmart competitors either. There's no competitor to Amazon either. So again, the idea that a Black startup is going to somehow get involved and rival and do in these industries what others have not been able to do is, I think, part of the mythology. And then again, even if Master P and this crew are able to put together a multi-billion-dollar snack company, all we'll have is another multi-billion-dollar snack company. I don't know how that is, again, supposed to be a benefit for the rest of us. And then, and then even symbolically, it's just such a step away from past efforts of liberation, of freedom, of sovereignty, of Black power, whatever. It's all of that is reduced to a couple shiny suits and proclamations of we're going to rival Kellogg. Now, sorry, I missed the comment you pulled up just a second ago, but so I don't know if you wanted us to respond to that or you were going to respond to that.
Oh no, it's just now.
Oh, okay,
again,
I see. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't want to claim that I know for a fact those kids are not getting paid. It just didn't show it. I know anytime I ever consult these organizations, they was like, well, we shouldn't lead with the money. No, you should tell them you're going to give them money because you value their time and you're going to pay them instead of exploiting them. Because you're going to exploit them anyway because of your nonprofit. You're trying to pull on the heartstrings of people. So you might as well pay them so they can get something out of it as well. So I'm not sure that Boss Up is not paying them, but everything that I've seen, videos and all, interviews, it doesn't seem like they're getting paid. It just seems like these kids are getting a chance to box up bags and help the distributor.
Yeah, I mean, sure. Like you get a job at any corner store or fast food joint, they're going to pay you something.
Yeah.
But nobody would argue that this is the pathway to national liberation.
Right.
I don't think.
I mean, and then we're talking about people who, I think in Eugene Perdier's book, he talked about that. I can't remember what it was, but they were pretty much asking a drug dealer how much more he need to get paid for him to, do only legal work. And they said it was like $30 an hour. So if you're in a business in a space where they're selling drugs because it's an economic issue, and then you teach them the game, and then they have to enter a business where he raised, I think, $40,000. He says he's friends with somebody's celebrity, so that's probably how he got that. And then he used the white boy to put him on. So the chances of even you giving these kids the game, they're not gonna make it, right? Or they're gonna compete with you now. They're gonna make another type of potato chip. Like it's I know there's a lot of celebrities and emotional connection celebrities in it, so it's really hard for you to kind of think about what's going on. But apparently Pinky from Baltimore, Slutty Vegan, she now has her face on a bag too, and she's selling the chips at their spot. And so it's kind of like they I guess the trio, Master P, Pinky, and James Lindsay. So
I mean, but that's great. But again, if the company is going to be successful, they're not going to be able to rely on the Black consumer. So that's again another one of these sort of built-in problems. Black consumers don't have enough money, so to support the expansion of a business to make it multi-billions of dollars rich. So and again, even with the myth, and I haven't seen the data that supports even that old claim of Black people spending $7 billion on snacks. I don't know how accurate that is, but even if it was true, even if it had doubled by now to 14 billion, if the claim had doubled to that, the only way to capture all of that revenue would be to literally capture every penny that every Black person spends in a given year on all snack related purchases. So that means you would have to sell not only one kind of chip, you would have to sell multiple kind of chips, you would have to sell multiple kinds of candy bars, multiple kinds of sodas, because not all of the Black spending on snacks is going to one kind of chip, right, one kind of candy bar, one kind of soda. So and again, then you would have to have the venture capital investment to scale up to be able to put your products everywhere Black people go shopping. So that in and of itself takes most people out the game. And then ultimately the goal, as always, is to get white consumers to buy your product.
Right.
which again takes us to the point I was making just a minute ago. Where is the strategy to rival Frito-Lay, Nestle, Hershey, whomever else, whatever, who have all of these relationships in terms of chocolate and elsewhere going all the way to the continent, where they're ripping off the continent and then claiming it's Swedish chocolate and all this other nonsense, Swiss chocolate rather, all of it's coming out of Ghana. So, or a lot of it's coming out of Ghana. So, so even to the other conversation we keep having, where's the Pan-African unity? Again, even as a business tactic, that would be essential. Anyway, I don't know. But those are just some of the problems with that I don't see them addressing in any of this.
Yeah. Also, one of the interviews, he talked about his sabbatical that he took. And again, you can see that he's like romanticizing some of these things, like not like my business almost went under and I pulled on some of my rappers for a lifeline. And so when he says stuff like he capitalized off of the new emergence of these rappers' success, and again, so what I've learned is, most of the times when you got people who are fans of celebrities, like those vague, silly words like, oh, so-and-so own this. Like even Amos, actually, one of the people we're going to cover is a sister who went through the franchise route, and she is minority owner of the Milwaukee Bucks still today. But they language her as the first Black woman to own an NBA team. And you look at the NBA owners, you don't see it, you're like, wait. So it's like the language sometimes throws off in this. And I mean, some of the journalists or some of the people who are writing the articles, they actually end up telling the truth because you can read it, but it's not, who's going to take the time to read that? And then how's it going to benefit you? Like people will say that you are Dr. Hate or you're being negative or, we got to make it somewhere. One more thing too. I've always seen Dr. Amos's lectures. At the end of all his lectures is normally a Q&A session. And that's where some of the livest discussion goes at. And there was a sister who actually challenged him on this whole concept of like, you said all this, and how can you say capitalism? And he actually says, I really don't know. I'm just working it out. I haven't even figured it out. So he's literally saying this in an interview. But I think, again, the problem comes when we take a book that he literally said, don't make the Bible.
Right.
And make it the Bible. And he actually says, test these things out. Like he said that we have a better upper hand from Du Bois and them because it's 90 years later. Well, we're not 90 years later, but we got enough time to follow these businesses and see what happened and what's going on and actually see some of the current businesses that's following the same blueprint. So again, that's
again, and I have to bring this up again because methodologically, again, after several readings, I have not put this particular focus on it, but throughout this whole section and beyond, I mean, Wilson's references for the positive nature of Black entrepreneurialism are the Wall Street Journal, the New York Daily News, the LA Times. These are the stories he's referencing that talk about the positive aspects of Black entrepreneurialism and hip hop entrepreneurialism. And that's something that anyway, I think that's just part of the problem here with some of the optimistic projected conclusions.
This one article, the brother was trying to be lenient, but I mean, I guess he couldn't get off over the fact that, well, I think most of us can't, that and I see Leah in the comments a couple of times, like we are literally selling unhealthy snacks. It's almost like what you said with,
that too.
with Killer Mike. Again, if we just maybe you made me view media differently, and so sometimes like these people be telling you the truth the whole time. Killer Mike interview said, yeah, slavery was horrible and bad, and they did this, and we got to get in on some of this. Like literally afterwards, he said we got to get in on some of this. Same thing with the Crip Cola. Said Coca-Cola and sugar soda is killing us. We got to get in on some of this. Y'all gonna die anyway, so we might as well make a business out of it. Like the shit is crazy to me. But
yeah, that's a good point. That's a very good point. Yeah. And I hadn't even thought of that until you brought up Leah's comment. That's a really good point. Of course, it's not even healthy. It's like,
We're gonna die anyway, so you might as well get a buck out of it. And
might as well.
But again, I don't know these people lifestyle, but I know they got enough money to be healthy and fit. And even James Lindsley said in one of his interviews, he said, we got to get to a place where we stop being the consumers. So what the fuck are you talking about? How the fuck you gonna make money if you don't want us to be consumers? Like, but again, they saying the type of shit that I'm like, yeah, people not watching the interview. So I guess
this is part of the mythology that I've wanted to be very critical of, that somehow when we hear consumer, we're hearing sucker, we're hearing the one without the strength in the relationship. We all want to be the merchants, we all want to be the boss, we all want to be the king and the queen. And I'm saying we have to redefine what it means to be a consumer. The consumers are the consumption part of the economy is the basis of this economy. So unless you're talking about another economy, and I did go back and look at Blueprint for Black Power, there is no index heading for socialism in here, by the way. Like there's no discussion of another form of an economic model, even if to be critical of it.
So real quick, I
sure.
thought about this today, and I'm trying to not put ourselves in what we know now with them. But okay, so Amos is a little bit older than Huey P. Newton, and he lived longer than him. He kind of lived through this phase of like this thing, and again, he really believed in this concept of collective group capitalism. I mean,
yeah,
it might sound crazy to us, but like he believed in it. And in fact, most of his practices, if you check with Sababu, most of his practices, it was trying to be collective. So
that's right. But that's the thing. So that's why, the other piece that I really caught on to when I was doing the buying power work is that when I came back to look at Wilson's work for that, his reading, and I think our dear sister Jessica Gordon-Nemhard does the same thing, that they read Du Bois in that isolated period in the 30s, early 40s, where he's talking about his own version of the mythology of collective capitalism, so to speak, and the ability to capture the Black consumer dollar. And then they leave out, and that's sort of my point, but they leave out even his own life experience, writing, and response to his own work, which is goes in a decidedly different direction. So in that regard, Wilson and Nemhard and others, I should be able to see it that way, because Du Bois, they come after Du Bois. Du Bois left all that literature, left all that history that could be checked. So when Wilson and Nemhard, and I think others, limit Du Bois to that moment, it's like another version of people limiting Du Bois to the color line statement in 1903 and leaving out the next 60 years of his work. And that's what I think is just methodologically a flaw. And then when we double down on the flaw by not doing what we're doing today, because admittedly, myself included, it's sometimes scary to be critical of some of these luminaries and to do so publicly. Anyway, yeah.
So I want to respond to bro Mossy.
Okay.
Is this the Baba from DC? Looks like who that is.
I'm not sure.
But so I will reach out to Sababu again, but there's a couple people in the book that I've reached out to that they might come on for themselves. But I also, again, I'm not against that, but I also believe, just like how people, they have the Bibles and like, well, did you check in with this person? Like, it was your responsibility to study it, right? And not only that, we use his words from the lecture and his words from the book. So it's not like we going against his words. I actually believe that had he had the pleasure of living longer, I think he would have corrected himself, because all the times I saw him struggle with, like, he says, I'm not a trained or studied economist. That's not my focus. But I'm just trying to, facilitate ideas and thoughts and spark dialogue. And again, I saw he done that. But I promise you, and we can do this if y'all ever want to really study it. We've studied it before. There's some chapters, especially policy formation. There's some chapters in there that will directly contradict any of these things. And I can see why it would contradict it, because he didn't say this was the plan. He said let's think about this. Let's have this, conversation. But I don't know if you want to add anything on that, because I know sometimes we feel like, we are bashing somebody or, but I think this is what they write the book for us to really kind of dive into it.
The other thing, I mean, my initial reaction is that we can't talk to everybody in every conversation at every moment. And then the reverse could also be asked as well. When are these criticisms invited into spaces that proudly proclaim Dr. Wilson and others to be unquestioningly right in every instance? Anyway, it was certainly not by my design to not include the brother or anybody else. It's just simply, well, I mean, first of all, you invited me, so it wasn't my discussion to invite anybody anyway. So, but my thing, especially now, one of the few positives that I might attribute to this YouTube media moment is there are ample shows for anyone to jump on and then get at me if they think I'm wrong, and they don't have to invite me either if they feel like I intentionally didn't invite them. You know what I'm saying? I mean, like, have at it. Offer up the criticism of what is being said. I have no problem with that.
Absolutely. So as we wrap up.
Thanks, Leah.
Hey,
no chip shaming. I hear you.
Hey, I'm gonna eat my tater chips like we said.
Oh no, look. People know I've been struggling with my weight my whole life, so it's a massive problem for me. But it's not fat shaming, but I don't think it's shaming anybody to say, hey, I mean, I don't even think it's controversial. Potato chips and soda are not healthy. Even if they're black owned, it's still not healthy.
Right. So as we wrap up, people in the comments, you can do it later or now. You can click on any of the links you want down there and go down your rabbit hole and come back and keep the dialogue going in the comments. But as we want to do with each of these business adventures or people, we want to give our critique as, is it still useful? Is it useful for us today? Is it scalable? Or should we go another route? And so as Brother Jared Ball give his thoughts on that, anybody in the comments, make sure you throw that in there. Or if you got any questions, we can kind of round out with that as well. So questions and your thoughts of, is it viable?
My request to you would be to have, I would like to invite myself back to join you and whoever else for a discussion on the policy section of this book, or some of it at least. Because I think you're right about the contradictions, and for me, that's where I think we need to be headed, and that's where I think we should be targeting and focusing our public and overt levels of struggle for public policy, and to simply say we don't need to be good entrepreneurs, we don't need to be good business people. If any wealth is created in this society, we all want our fair cut. That should be, I think, and as consumers, we should be able to say, all I do is consume. I don't want to be an entrepreneur. I'm not good at business. But as a consumer, I am just as important in the process of creating wealth. Without me, there is no wealth creation. So therefore, when I buy something and wealth is created off of that exchange, some of that's got to come back to me, to you, and everybody else. So anyway.
Absolutely. So, it says, I'll reach out to him again, and we actually wanted him to come when we studied psychology of self-hatred, which is, again, there's some other, I don't know. I think, I want you to respond to this too, Jared, while people tell us in the comments.
Can I ask you a real question? Could Brother Mosi put a comment or a quote or question in the chat that would maybe give us some insight into why this brother is so important and what gaps we're not addressing? Like, what is Brother Sababu's argument we're not doing justice here, that he would have added here in the lieu of his presence for now. Yeah, that would be.
Yeah, I would love that. I would love that question, but what I think is because I've read very few that Sababu put out by himself. He's been mostly transcribing the books for him and putting it in book form and editing and stuff like that. So, but I would be curious. That would be a good question that Bro Mosi could put in there. But my other thing was, I think we talked about this before, but yeah, we definitely did. With elders, and let's say, for instance, if your work is, you are an economist, right? But you have some kind of thoughts on spirituality and these other things, but you haven't really studied it. How important is it? And I know this sounds weird, but to kind of like stay within your lane, and not kind of go outside of that because of people potentially probably deitizing you or putting you in a place where if he said it and it's true, like you have any thoughts on that?
I mean, I think. Well, I'll just speak from my own perspective. I mean, again, I'm also not a trained economist, which in some cases could be a negative. Similarly to what Wilson, what we're dealing with Wilson. Speaking of economics, I mean, anyway, I'll just leave that there. So, so for me to feel comfortable staying in my lane, which is professionally at least media and Africana studies, my look at it at issues of economics is not at necessarily how the numbers are put together in every instance, at least, but more looking at how the numbers are being reported and discussed versus what other economic reports are saying. So when you're outside of your lane, I think you have to read widely, cite your sources, and allow for the shortcomings of your training or experience to be considered in the work that you produce if you're going to enter the lane. Right. And I get why Wilson is doing it. I mean, I see what he's trying to do with this magnum opus work he's put together here. He's trying to, again, in one thick product, give his audience something that can be the blueprint for Black Power. Right. It could be argued that maybe he went too far outside his expertise, and I don't know. I mean, I definitely disagree with some of his conclusions here, but I think that I don't know. Now I feel like I'm rambling, but I think it's just important to. One of the things I appreciated about my own academic training, even institutional academic training, is that you are encouraged to put yourself in the research. That is to understand your own perspective, your own shortcomings and limitations, and then to try to compensate for that by following sort of methodological steps, including, as I think Wilson did do here, by saying, look, I'm outside my lane. These are some things I'm looking at that I think we can benefit from. Right. What we haven't done subsequently is taken him at his word, to your own suggestion, and say, he said he's not an expert. We should consider this in league with other things on the subject. And if there's some shortcomings in what Wilson has said in these pages, it's not saying his overall argument and goal is wrong, right, then we can make some improvements. I don't know. That was probably a.
No, I think that's important. And I hope Brother Mosi can give us, again, a critique or a question or something, a nuance that's missing, because I think this work was very intentional, very thorough. And the fact that he would make it thorough, he would put that disclaimer on that chapter that said, hey, I'm not an economist. This is just to spark thought, dialogue, and create solutions. That's right. Like, he literally said that, it took time out of a chapter to say that. So, actually, he said he want to, how much time you got, Jay? He said he want to call in. He's driving.
I'm good. I got a few minutes. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'll get you in. How do I think
you can.
Well, I guess
can't see it from here, but there.
Yeah, I can put it in.
If you right click on there should be dots next to his name in the chat, and if you right click, you can invite him. or you could just drop the link to the studio in the chat.
Yeah, I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna do that and just accept whoever.
And then just let him jump in. And then obviously if someone jumps in that you don't want in, just kick them out.
So hopefully no crazy people jump in. All right, bro, Mosi is right. It's in the chat. Damn, I put it like 15 times. You come in. I was about to say something. Just made me forget. Yeah, but yeah, just jump in through there and I'll let you in and we can vibe. But I think with and I'm actually glad when you did this Claude Anderson critique the other day and you were not claiming, but saying that we're not enemies. Here's where we disagree. And then you was, being more open to it. Because I know, I'm probably guilty of it too. That you say one thing wrong, I'm throwing all your shit away, or I'm like,
that's right.
So I know that's kind of a thing.
Oh, I know it happens all the time, and I'm trying to be careful with that. I'm not saying at all that even with Claude Anderson, we should throw all their stuff away. I just think that there's a basis of an approach to their analysis that is wildly flawed. And I'm sometimes accused by their acolytes of hating them and being an enemy. But that's just a willful decision to ignore my argument and to not engage it. But that's all, but no,
All right. So yeah, mostly jump in and then everybody in the chat, tell us if you see snack industry. Is the snack industry something viable for us to enter in as a group, as a collective, to gain some kind of economic mobility, power, political power? Do you see that as a viable option based off of this example? Anybody in the chat, y'all can comment yes, no, or give your analysis as we wait for Brother Mosi to come in. I wanted to kind of see more so of what the deal was with some of these. Not that I really care about the celebrities, but see what the deal was with these people putting their name on the face on the bag, because all of it sound like they just getting cross promotions. Like, oh well, Rap Snacks is popping in the hood with these places, and now you can increase your sales in the hood. Like, that's kind of what it looks like. So people putting their name on the bag. And I guess with social media, you can like even Rick Ross says, when I was a little kid, I wanted to be on the bag. And so I call him out. And so it's almost like now your goal is to get your name on the bag, not own part of it or get paid, but like get on the bag. Like, and so I wanted to look more into that too, but again, there was just too many holes for me to go down that one.
And again, I mean, I keep falling back on the one line, but that's why Teray kept saying black visibility is not black power. And that's pun intended, the trick bag that we keep finding ourselves in or on, and why we get caught up, even as you were talking about earlier, in quote unquote minority ownership being counted as owners. Again, pun intended with the minority piece. No industry is viable to bridge the wealth gap. We are vulnerable due to our overall political power. We can't pay. Yeah, that's right. I mean, that's it. There is no industry that we can get in and close this wealth gap. And again, the wealth gap exists because it has to exist for there to be a wealthy group and an unwealthy group. So
studies show black people dominate in healthcare and beauty.
No, with the studies, that's sort of I guess I would say an unfortunate phrasing. It's not that black people dominate in the healthcare industry. That's where they predominate in terms of black-owned businesses. They're not, and that's because they're mostly, as this comment says, 1 to 2 employees. They're not generating a lot of wealth, and they're in segments of the economy that have been largely I don't know, for lack of a better word, abandoned by the dominant forces in the industry. But in all of the areas where most of the money is made, in manufacturing and pharmaceuticals and military and defense, there is no entry. There is no even in the snack industry. If you look at it, it's just like any other industry. It's like 5, 6, 10 companies own everything. and Pepsi is one of them, by the way. Pepsi, who already dominates the soda thing, is also throughout the entire. I mean, you know, they're one of the big players in the entire snack industry. So this idea that we're going to be able to, you know, get a couple of celebrities involved and even some intelligent business people, and that this is going to be something, you know, that can be. And again, even if the Rap Snacks is successful, what I mean, and you know, successful, what so what?
Yeah.
You know.
So if I posted, and then it's here live too, mostly, so you can get in through there. Ricky said that Safu, my Gullah brethren, he wrote a great piece on pretending to.
That's right.
Yeah, definitely
That's
check
right.
that out.
And again, if you and I hate one of my here, I'm going to contradict myself because I really don't like using films to talk about history. But one of my favorite films on that does brush up against some real history is that film on the history of McDonald's, starring Michael Keaton.
Oh yeah,
the founder, I think it's called.
Mm-hmm.
And that one scene where he meets with the lawyer, and the lawyer tells him, you're in the wrong, you're doing it all wrong. You're trying to battle the founders of McDonald's over the restaurants. You need to become the landowner. And that's what has set McDonald's apart from most other, even fast food restaurants, is that they own the land that their restaurants are put on. And then they make the franchisees rent from the space from them. So that's how that dude who create whatever his name is now, I can't remember, who made McDonald's what it is. That's how he stole it from the original, creators of McDonald's and turned it into what it is now. Black people can't. Again, even if there was one black company that could rival McDonald's, again, my question would be, so what?
I guess I was trying to. Damn, I was about to. I was trying to find them in the chat. They said it's not showing it up, but if you can see it right here, you can come through on there. Brother Mosi.
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't. As a guest, I don't see the chat over here. So,
ironically, next week, our who we covering is a Reverend Adams from Detroit. I think he just transitioned a couple years ago, but he actually supposedly bought land and rented it out to McDonald's, KFC, or whatever. And so we followed him, and we'll see how that work out. But
again, actually, that poses another interesting point. Even if you can buy land or end up owning land, how do you turn it into a wealth creating asset? And if you're gonna, I'll never forget the one time. It was so weird that the one time, one of the very few times I've ever been quote unquote recognized out in public. I was walking down the street in Brooklyn a couple years ago, and a brother calls me out, and we start talking, and it turns out that he owns property in row house property in one of these gentrifying Brooklyn communities. So on the one hand, he's talking to me about Black power and sovereignty and Pan-Africanism, but then he acknowledged in our conversation that the contradiction of, I own the property, but I have to rent it out because the only people who can afford it, I have to rent it out to the gentrifying whites because they're the only ones who can afford the rising rates. Now, I didn't press him on this to be honest, but I could have asked, well, theoretically, you could rent it at a cheaper rate to Black residents. You don't have to charge the gentrifying rates. You could have made less money. But the point is to turn that property into a wealth creating asset, he had to go where the money and the investment opportunities are. And of course, they're in white communities. They're not in Black communities. So you're not going to be able to turn that land into some wealth producing asset that's going to rival McDonald's or KFC without inviting McDonald's and KFC in. I'd also be surprised how that worked out, because as I understood it, McDonald's wants to own its land, so the renting thing would be surprising to me. But
it was supposed to be franchise, rented to franchise McDonald's. So black franchise owning McDonald's, which was still kind of here you go. All right, bro. You come off mute, bro. Okay.
Appreciate y'all, brothers.
Absolutely.
Y'all doing it
Right on.
So forgive me if I missed any of the initial responses to my reference to Sababu Platu, but just from my perspective, I think it would be good to have the brother here to offer some remarks or even historical context under which Dr. Amos wrote the book or put the book together. It's my understanding he also transitioned while the book was still he was still working on the piece as well, and it was a group of I'm not sure if you all are familiar with that history, but I think that history is important, especially considering your comments, Jared, in relation to the book being best read as part of a group. So in the spirit of that sort of collectivism, I think it can kind of help to sort of provide, I think, a clearer, concise framing, if you will. And also to honor this brother's, his genius. I'm speaking of Sababu and that sort of, in his service or his commitment to all of what we're struggling forward with, because this was still carried on. Were it not for this brother, I don't think we would be having this discussion. Thinking about his labor of love and commitment, I think, in my opinion, has yet to be, fully embraced or honored or respected in these sort of like scholar communities or whatever, these different kind of communities and spaces that we have.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, you want to respond first? Yeah.
I mean, on the one hand, so first I just want to reiterate, this is not a condemnation of Dr. Wilson. This is a critique of one segment of his work, with the privilege of, as I think we were saying, 20 some odd years of reflection time that he obviously did not have. So that's one thing. My other thing is that in wanting to be openly critical of some of this is that it's the reverberating impact on people in our community who read his work, who pick up on what I think are misunderstandings and abbreviated looks at what Wilson was arguing for. So for instance, they'll take the economic piece and leave out his broader Pan-African collectivist piece in terms of what their express goals are. And that, so that's really what I'm trying to say. Like, Dr. Wilson isn't here anymore to say, look, obviously we already know from his track record, he would have published 10, 15 more books by now. At least 5, let's say at least 5 books he might have slowed down his older age, right? Let's say he would have published at least 5 more substantive books in 25 years. Where in some of them, or one of them, he might have said, this is some of the things I got wrong or I could have built on, or maybe he would have, and honestly, this is the part I don't know. Did he feel like, did he have an idea of the shortness of his life and try to pack more into this book than he might have had he known he was going to live long? Actually, that part I might not know. The only other part is that I don't feel like my critique of Wilson in this instance is the result of me not having an understanding of Wilson and his work in the context in which it was written. So it would, and so my interest in hearing from Brother Sababu or anybody else wouldn't be so that I could be educated on what Wilson was intending. I think I'm pretty clear on that. It would be to maybe talk about the effectiveness or the accuracy of the analysis given our 25 years, more time to look at.
Thanks for that. That's my second point. I guess the last one that I have is that from what I've heard and shared with Brother Sababu is that this is what's needed. Like, this sort of, the critique and, refinement, if you will, because they're, I guess in his estimation, I wouldn't necessarily call them, subsequent editions, but there's a need for some sort of scholarship to complement and expand upon the existing body of work. And that's what it's been my experience in interacting with him, is that this is what he's, was needed. But that, of course, it's not finished. It's not something that's, fixed. by any means, obviously, do what we currently
Yeah.
Right on.
basically dealing with.
No, I agree. Any interactions I had with Sababu, it was always open. I know his schedule was kind of busy. He was stepping away from some things a lot, so it made it hard to catch up with him. But I think one of the things which Sababu and Amos was really tight, and so I don't think Sababu would be politically left or different of Amos. I think they would be in alignment, and so. And we can't forget, it's not like he did not transcribe word for word what Amos had already lectured. So all of his lectures are out there. And even the ones that's not on YouTube, they're still out there, right? And people be selling them or whatever. And he transcribed those things from it. Like you can literally, again, with the one that he just published a couple years ago, word for word from the lectures, including the question and answers at the end. So it's like, again, that's not really taken away from what Sababu did, because it's powerful to have it in the book and be able to study and ride through it. But I also think that, yes, I would want him to come and dialogue with us about these different people. Even some of these people that are still alive, I would want them to talk about their experience. But even more so, I want the consumers and the studiers and the thinkers and the organizers to be able to like really have a conversation about that as well. Because, for instance, I've heard people, again, and I told Jared this before, I've heard brothers say that they think Fred Hampton would be a black capitalist. And I'm like, there's no fucking way that you can get that from anything he ever said or written or whatever. Right? But if people can stand and make bogus statements about these people and they don't have, they didn't check in with the people, I think that becomes problematic. So it's not like we're talking about these things that, like, I'm actually, I was telling Jared too, I'm a student of Dr. Amos Wilson. That's who kind of brought my mind into the space. But I think I'm doing this because of how much love I have for him as well. Like, I literally, the first time I read the book, I was like, I probably want to follow up on these things. And the second time I read it, I was like, I started writing all the names down and then started following up them. And all them shits was like tragic. Like, I mean, only one or two of them is, we can talk about that later, but the majority of them shits are tragic. And then I started to listen to him saying, I really don't have the answers economically, and I'm struggling with that. And so I'm looking at these things. I said, okay, well, and then on top of that, right before he talks about economics, he tells you, hey, this is not Bible. So I think this is something that all of us can be a part of, but I definitely appreciate you making sure that we can try to include Sababu in it, which, again, I'm gonna reach out to him this weekend and see if he got time to jump on. But again, it will be more so about the businesses. So I don't know that Sababu has stayed in contact with some of these people, but if he did, that would be even better. I would assume he is connected or was connected to Reverend Adams that we're going to cover next week, because Reverend Adams is well known. So I mean, I can check and see, but I appreciate that.
Appreciate you and y'all dropping the link, and just for convening this, this space here. I mean, I think it's much needed and powerful. I check both the brothers out as often as I can.
Yes, sir, man. Appreciate you.
No, thank you. Appreciate you jumping on too. That's much appreciated.
Yes.
All right. Any other questions before we wrap up? Any other things we need to any points we need to hit? Jared, you always welcome back anytime. There's a couple people that I know that you probably would love diving into, but
no, I'd love to do this whenever. I appreciate the invitation and I appreciate the work you were doing. So anytime I can help out, I'm down for it. And I like getting those little homework assignments that you sent. And this is essential. I think this work is important. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
You want to say any kind word to Wise, so we make sure Wise don't feel like we
Hey, he's in my top 5 of MCs. His work is incredible. I love Wise Intelligent. And again, this is it. I don't want to talk, like, I don't even want to read the work of people I I hate to disagree with them and to debate with them. So I'm only interested in these discussions with people that I care about and have a affection for. So, you know, and we're not always going to agree. So I do hope we can get to a point where disagreement isn't negative and hostile. It's just disagreement. We're certainly with people like Wise, certainly people with like Dr. Wilson, and a handful of others that I have a couple of issues here with. It's all love. And so, yeah, I don't, you know, there are those I have a criticism of where there is no love involved, but Wise is not on that list. You know, I don't see how he could end up on that list. You know, so anyway, yeah.
Ricky said, I got to come on your Friday mornings.
Hey, brother Kaba had his schedule, you know, he had to move on. So if you're, that's a really good idea. In fact, I mean, I can't speak for you know, this is probably inappropriate to say this here. We should be, I mean, you all should have a show on BPM anyway. I mean, but so we can talk about that. Geechee is more than welcome.
Absolutely. Thank you for that.
So yeah, that'd be great. Actually, I think it'd be great to do that. So let's talk about that. If you're interested, let's do it.
Definitely. All right, y'all. Nobody said this is not viable yet. Are you saying this is not viable? Everybody's kind of like not
saying what's not viable.
This solution, is this a solution that we can move forward into our
Oh no. That's why I want to have the conversation about the policy piece, because I want us to get into a fight over that with the society. And stop trying to look, the piece you said it best. They're trying to get their hands on what they think is this little bit of money in Black America, and I want us to you know, what did that last one say? I missed that comment.
Oh,
Hey, I agree.
I mean, I can't sing like Kaba, but I mean, goodness.
Few people can. As
long as y'all don't ask me to sing, I'll be all right.
Yeah, no. Absolutely do that. And by the way, if Fridays don't work, we can do it Monday too. You know, if you prefer. But yeah, Fridays with Geechee would be great, especially if I can get you to let me get in on some more of those voiceover joints.
Man, did you see that last one I text you? It's like a Facebook. It's like a dude. He getting locked up, and he said he's trying to run for mayor, and then his homeboy get locked up with him too.
Nah, you said you texted that to me?
I think I texted. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I texted your phone. I'll text it again, but
you did.
Yeah.
You should play that joint real quick before we leave.
Hold on. What? How do I get? Let me find. I'm at. Oh yeah,
I'm looking at it now.
It's on Facebook, right? Can you send a link?
I can't even see what. All I have is it would open up in a QuickTime player thing, which you can't play the audio from on StreamYard. It doesn't even say what platform this was on, so I can't even tell. Oh, it's TikTok.
His name Jeffrey running for mayor. I think
Jeffrey running for mayor.
Yo, that's. But it's so blurry, man. I don't know if I can find
mayor from Mobile, Alabama, as he's getting walked out on the police line.
Man, my bad, y'all. We gotta show y'all this clip that's possible.
Oh wow, this dude is. Oh wow, okay. But this isn't one of your voiceover joints, though.
Huh?
This isn't one of your voiceover joints.
No. I said this is a video we might do a voiceover for.
Oh. Then don't show it. My bad. Then don't show it yet.
Oh yeah. You gonna be the second dude. I gotta be the first.
Oh yeah. Give me the script and tell me what's up. Yeah, I'm ready. I love it. Let's go.
All right, man. Yeah, y'all rock out. Appreciate y'all. By all means, because none of y'all said, you know, this is not a good venture, I'm gonna assume all of y'all supporters of Rap Snacks. Pretty sure y'all boss up programs. Nobody in the comments said, no, this is not a viable option. Yes, this is a viable option. But I guess we'll see later. So I think they all against us, Jerry. Only me and you. We're gonna have to run rogue on this.
There it is.
Rap Snacks and but one more thing, this lady, one of the ladies on the interview on the links, she actually tasted Rap Snacks for the first time, and she was like, she kept making faces. She's like, now y'all do not eat this without drinking. drink. Yo, it was horrible. It was really horrible. Like the people who do the interviews are not good people. They fanning over the people, but when they eat the chips, it's almost like it's not that good or it's too much flavor on it. So yeah, it's crazy.
I would rather just have some political power, so we get Pringles money and Frito-Lay money and Nestle money and Pepsi money. Anyway.
Yeah. Anyway, appreciate y'all.
PT Friday's coming up.
Yeah,
Let's get it.
Knock it out. Definitely. Appreciate y'all. And we will see y'all. We'll close out with Amos telling us that we did a good job today. All right. Peace.
Why are we faced with these same problems again and again? Why do they never end? Because, ladies and gentlemen, ultimately the problem is not an economic problem so much as it is the problem of white domination of African people. That's the issue. This is the reason why I tell people you must study the psychology of domination even before you study the psychology of racism. Understand that. I had one young man who's so happy he's at NYU. He said, oh, I'm learning so much, and I'm so happy. I'm in this class in economics. You know, I said, well, now, why are you in that class? And they're doing all these circles and curves and, you know, cost and all these kind of figures, which Negroes think are magic signs for making money. You see, so they think if they learn all this voodoo, that they're going to come out and be like the white folk. But remind that professor that the American economy is not ultimately based on the management skills of American management. It's not based on the organization of American corporations. What ultimately is it based on? Upon the murdering of Indians and the stealing of their lands. So that the economic course essentially is a course in how the booty is going to be divided among American people. It all goes over what? Gold and salt, and who won, and over trade routes and other things. And people went to war and took those things from one and another. And those who gained control over them then built empires and nations and so forth as a basis of that. Not just studying economics 101 and business administration. But you got to